Welcome to all food tech online platform. In this video, we'll discussing regarding with the food chemistry and that topic food nutrients and deficiency. Okay. Okay. So basically, our whole food chemistry or nutrient, basically in the case of nutrient, divided into the two major parts, macronutrient and the micronutrient, right? So macronutrients are those which require the major excess amount, major amount, or we can say the large amount in our body, and the micronutrient which involve the just minor amount in our body. Okay, so that is a major difference in the food chemistry or the food nutrient food science, which is on the basis of the nutrient macronutrient and the micronutrient, right? So basically macronutrient are what? Micronutrients are the what? Those the nutrient which is required the large amount to our body, that is means the macronutrient. Okay, and that is measured in the gram quantity, ग्राम में ये measure किया जाता है. And the examples of that macronutrient is nothing but the protein, carbs and the fat. As you know that whatever the basic nutrient that we have required in the excess amount, in the sufficient amount, or we can say in the large amount, as compared to the micronutrient, is nothing but the protein, carbs and the fat. Okay, so note that the body main source of the energy is nothing but the carbs. As we all know that the main source of the energy provided is nothing but the through the carbohydrate. It is the main source of the energy provided. It is a very important, student, right? That is a basic concept. All the basic concept is very important in the food chemistry of food nutrient. Okay, the carbohydrate is the main source to provide the energy. The the body utilizes carbohydrate energy first. As we require the energy to the body, firstly it is utilizes the carb. As in case of the absent of the carb, they utilizes at the fat. Okay, secondly it is utilizes as the fat in the case of absent of the carbs. And both carbs as well as the fat which are the absent in our body, they utilizes the protein. They utilizes the protein. They utilizes the protein, okay, for the energy purpose. Hope that concept all is clear, right? So they provided energy and the building block of protein, carbs and the fat. As the micronutrient is serve as the building block of our body. Yes, why? Because the whatever the major function in our body that plays the macronutrient, that which of they, that is nothing but the carbs, protein and the fat. Then moving toward the micronutrient, as the name suggested, micro means a smaller amount, or we can say the trace amount, smaller amount. Macro means a large amount, right? So micronutrient which is the required to the our small amount in our body. The examples of the micronutrient is nothing but the vitamins, minerals and trace element. Trace element means which require in the trace element means the metals involved, right? Metals involved in it. And the micronutrient which is the measure in the micro or the milligram quantity. माइक्रो और मिलीग्राम क्वांटिटी में अपन उसको मेजर करते हैं, राइट? ओके, नाउ दैट micronutrient which is very useful for the maintaining the normal health, whatever the we have normal health sustaining in our life, that for the sustaining the normal life in your human being life, the micronutrient is very important, student, preventing a various disease. Okay, as although the macronutrient is a building block, perform the major functions, but as well micronutrient requires a small amount, but it is prevent for the various disease. This concept is also really important, students, right? Whatever the functions of the micronutrient. Okay, they do not provide the energy. As we all know that the micronutrient which do not provide the energy, right? As the micronutrient which is provide the energy as carbs, protein and the fat, right? So energy content of the food. Okay, as we all know that the whatever the micronutrient, carbs, protein and the fat which is provided at the energy in the form of the ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, right? Which is the that ATP, that energy, when we utilize the energy for which purpose? For the functioning of the body purpose, right? So the use is nothing but the body functioning, right? Okay, the energy content of the food is measured in calories and the kilocalorie. That is a measurement. It is a unit to measure the energy, right? Calories and the kilocalories. Then after toward, what do you mean by the calories here? Okay, the amount of the heat required to one temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, to raise heat or to raise the temperature of 1 gram. 1 ग्राम हमें टेम्परेचर बढ़ाने के लिए बाय द 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस हमें वाटर का यूज करना पड़ेगा. दैट मेजरमेंट इज नथिंग फॉल अंडर इन द कैटेगरी ऑफ द कैलोरीज. उसको हम कैलोरीज कहेंगे टू रेज द टेम्परेचर ऑफ 1 ग्राम, राइट? As we all know that the whatever the energy ratio or whatever the energy we have gained from the carbs, protein and the fat, as we all know that the carbs and the protein which is provided the 4 kilocalorie to our body, and the most important fat which is provided the highest amount of the energy in our body, that is nothing but the 9 kilocalorie as compared to carbs and the protein. That's why we have called as a fat. It is the concentrated source of energy, right? Or the stored energy source. Okay, moving toward the next. Okay, firstly we'll see all macronutrient one by one, what it is basically, right? So protein. So basically whatever the protein, as we all know that the protein, it is made up of the two functional unit, that is the carboxylic acid and the amino group. Okay, that is referred as the amino acids. So as we know that whatever the nitrogen content in the protein, that is the main source, right, to in our body, whatever we have content in it. So as we know, all know that the protein, it is made up of the amino acids. Okay, and the amino nitrogen, which is containing the nitrogen content or nitrogen in it. Okay, so it is very important concept, students, that is protein are the only source of the nitrogen in our body. It is a very important concept, student, right? So the proteins are the main source to provide the nitrogen in our body. Okay, because whatever the unit of the protein, it is nothing but the amino acids. Okay, sorry, carboxylic acids and the amino group, which combines to form the amino acids, right? The units of the protein is nothing but the amino acids. So in that amino means what? Nitrogen containing group. Okay, so only source of nitrogen containing group in our body is nothing but the protein, right? So so basically whatever the amino acids, or we can say the protein, which is a synthesis in the different tissues and the inside. Okay, so eating the extra amount of the protein, then the body can react the two ways. If you extra protein अपन ने suppose consume कर लिए, तो body which can react which two way we see. Okay, either the excess protein is broken down and the use as the energy, as we eat the excess amount of the protein. Okay, so whatever the that protein, as a protein, that protein, it is used as the energy source in our body. As we earlier discussed, as the absent of the carbs and the fat, body uses the protein as such for the energy uses. So बॉडी में एक्सेस अमाउंट ऑफ द प्रोटीन हो गया तो वो बॉडी क्या करेंगे, एनर्जी पर्पस के लिए उसको यूज करेंगे. और it will convert to acetyl coenzyme which is used the fat synthesis, right? Then दूसरा क्या रिएक्ट करेंगे अपनी बॉडी कि जो भी ये प्रोटीन है उसको एसिटिल कोएंजाइम ए में कन्वर्ट करके उसको फैट सिंथेसिस, जो भी फैट सिंथेसिस है उसके यूज के लिए, उसके सिंथेसिस के लिए वो यूज में कर लेंगे, राइट? सो वी कैन कंक्लूड दैट द एक्सेसिव प्रोटीन आर नथिंग बट द स्टोर्ड फैट. एज वी नो दैट फर्स्टली वो क्या करेंगे, एनर्जी सोर्स के लिए वो यूज करेंगे, इधर उसको कन्वर्ट करके एसिटिल कोएंजाइम ए को प्रोटीन को एसिटिल कोएंजाइम ए में कन्वर्ट करके उसको एज द फैट सिंथेसिस में यूज होगा और फैट सिंथेसिस में उसका कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा. सो अपन कंक्लूड कर सकते हैं कि दैट इज नथिंग बट द स्टोर्ड फैट. ओके, the excessive fat which excessive protein is nothing but the stored fat is here, right? So now we'll move further. What are the types of the protein? That is nothing but the essential amino acids and the non-essential amino acids. So basically essential amino acid, which is the can't synthesis in our body. Okay, this is can't synthesis, cannot synthesize, will fulfill for that requirement from the external source, from the outer source, right? The examples of the few essential amino acid, that is the phenylalanine, valine, tryptophan, threonine, isoleucine, methionine, histidine, arginine, lysine, and leucine, right? And the non-essential amino acid, which is can synthesis in our body, that is not need to take extra diet for the non-essential amino acids. As we know that the essential amino acid can't synthesis in our body, that's why we have take it into from the outer external source from our diet. And the essential amino acids, non-essential amino acids, it is synthesis in our body. That is the two basically types. Okay, so source of the RDA, that is the recommended dietary intake. Whatever the recommended dietary intake is nothing from the normal adult, it is the 0.8 grams per kg we have intake for the normal. It is very important concept and very important is that student, ये बहुत ही important है आपकी competitive exam में ये आ सकता है, ठीक है? Whatever the recommended dietary intake for the protein is nothing but the 0.8 for the normal adults. For the athletes who are the sportsmen, which is nothing but the 1. Okay, for the pregnancy or lactations up to 30, and the children's is 2. Okay, and the normal source of the protein is nothing but the meat, poultry, fish, milk, wheat, corn, beans, and other. One of the point here to be noted to the student is that whatever the BV, that is nothing but the biological value. Okay, biological value of the animal protein is much higher than the plant protein. That's why we have larger amount, or we can say we have much sufficient amount to take the animal protein, right? Why? Because the whatever the biological value for the animal protein is very high, or the we can say the standard of the biological value of animal protein is much more excess amount, right? So protein, as one by one we'll discuss all the macronutrients, right? So first of all we'll see the protein. What is the protein basically? Okay, the measure of the protein ability to having the essential amino acids. So whatever the essential amino acid, as we see in the earlier, the two types of the amino acid, essential as well the non-essential. So what happened, the essential amino acids which is required for the building of the tissue, for the maintenance of the tissue, as the tissue which is combined to form the organ, right? So organ in our body, that's why for the maintenance of the tissue the essential amino acids required, right? Most of the essential amino acid we have required, which taken through our external sources from our diet. Okay, to know the protein which protein is more beneficial than the other. Okay, essential amino acid which is more ever beneficial from the other non-essential amino acids. The unit for the measurement of the protein is nothing but the PDCAAS unit. What is it? It is nothing but the protein digestibility correct amino acid scoring. So on the basis of that, we'll measure the protein. It is a very important concept, student, right? So PDCAAS means what? Protein digestibility corrected amino acid scoring. As we know that the protein which was contain the amino acids, right? With respect of that, whatever the corrected digestibility scoring, or whatever the corrected digestibility score rank of that, will measure the protein with the help of unit PDCAAS unit, right? The amino acid scores provided for each amino acid present in the protein, right? With respect to that, whatever the amino acids which is present in that protein, with all that respect, the scoring which is viewed with in respect to the PDCAAS unit. Okay, the high value indicates more digestibility, and the high quality maximum ratio is the 1. The high digestibility which is score having the 1, right? which is having the high score. It is a very important, student, with your with respect to our competitive exams. Okay, the high digestibility or the high score which is having the score, it is a 1 with respect to high digestibility. The score of the animal protein is higher because as we as have we have already discussed, the whatever the biological protein in the case of the animal protein is much higher as compared to the plant protein. That's why the score of the animal protein is much higher than the plant protein, because the constituent of the animal protein similar to the requirement of the body. Okay, whatever the constituent of the animal which is a little bit, or we can say not a little bit, uh, exactly match with each other as the animal protein and the human protein, human constituent. That's why the biological value for the animal protein is much higher than the plant protein. Okay, is very important concept here. You will be note that point, right? आप इसको note कर सकते हैं. Okay, hence the protein will be higher nutritional value and ultimately high score. As we know that the high score or the whatever the digestibility ratio in it or the score in it is nothing but the 1. So animal protein is having the high score of the high digestibility, or we can say the high biological value, right? So the animal source which is the higher means it is nothing but the from zero point 0.8 to 1, and as we earlier discussed too, that is nothing but the whatever the biology scores or the for the digestibility ratio or the value for that is nothing but the zero point 0.4. So here also you to be noted that point. Okay, the protein which is the higher nutritional source is nothing but the highest source of the milk protein is nothing but the milk. Okay, it is nothing but the casein. Okay, which is the good nutritional value or good nutritional quality, which is the easily digestible to the humans. Okay, easily digestible here, and which is containing the essential amino acids which is taken from our diet. So it is course is nothing but the 1. इसका जो अपना digestibility है वो more है and the quality is high. That's why the scores which is contribute is nothing but the 1. Okay, and the egg white which is mainly considered the oval albumin protein, which is having also the high digestibility, more digestibility, which is the high quality of the protein, right? So main source is nothing but the milk as well as the egg. Basically at the top, milk casein is very high and rich source, and we can say the high quality and digestibility source for the protein. Okay, then we'll see the nutrition balance. Okay, as for the digestibility of the protein, or we can say as we intake of the protein, which is the only one source of the nitrogen content, which is categorized into the 3 parts in our body as containing the balance of the nitrogen in your body. First is nothing but the normal nitrogen balance. What is in it? Normal is nothing but the it is having the equal sense of nitrogen intake as well as the nitrogen loss. Okay, as we intake the protein, as same quantity the losses of the protein, losses of the nitrogen content in our body, that is happening in the normal nitrogen balance. And second is nothing but the negative nitrogen balance. What happened? The loss is more, and the whatever the intake is not a compensating with the loss. जो भी loss हो रहा है ये more हो रहा है, ज्यादा हो रहा है एज कम्पेयर टू द इनटेक कम हो रहा है, लॉस ज्यादा हो रहा है, एंड जो भी अपन इनटेक कर रहे हैं वो कंपेंसेट वो बराबर बैठ नहीं रहा है एज कम्पेयर टू द लॉस, राइट? इट नॉट कंपेंसेटिंग विथ ईच अदर. सो आप इस ये पूरा ध्यान रखने से अच्छा है आप यही एक ट्रिक से याद रखो कि जो भी निगेटिव में जा रहा है, निगेटिव नाइट्रोजन बैलेंस विच इज द मोर हैविंग नाइट्रोजन लॉसेस, राइट? Okay, which is basically happen in the which person which is causes the illness, metabolic trace, burns, and the metabolic trace humans, right? Then the positive nitrogen balance, what happen in it? So whatever the intake of the nitrogen, or we can say the protein, it is more than the loss. Okay, Okay, so whatever the intake of the protein, it is more than the loss in the case of the positive, as the intake is the higher than the loss. Basically it is occur in the case of the those peoples which is having the occurrence in the growth stage, means at the age of 19 to 20. Okay, the pregnancy, in the lactation period. Okay, in that cases the positive nitrogen balance are there. Okay, so there are basically three categories: normal, negative nitrogen. Normal, which is having the equal; positive, which is having intake is more; and negative, loss having more. Okay, then we'll see the protein energy malnutrition. Okay, here the two concepts are there: protein and the energy. Energy will get from the carbohydrate as the primary source, and the protein are there, which is the building block of our body. So protein energy, इन दोनों का रेशियो मिला के जो भी माल न्यूट्रिशन अपने को कॉज होता है, दैट इट विल बी एक्सप्लेनेड. So what is it? The conditions of the disease which is causes not in eating enough food leading to the energy malnutrition, not eating the balanced diet leading to the protein malnutrition. So basically we have not proper the energy, okay, not eating the energy in the proper ratio or proper manner, proper ratio, then we have causing the energy malnutrition. And in the case of we have not eating properly amount of the protein in the diet, in our diet, is called as the protein malnutrition. You get it that point? Okay, जब हमने एनर्जी का सफिशिएंट अमाउंट में इंटेक नहीं किया तो अपने को एनर्जी माल न्यूट्रिशन हो सकता है. और in our diet we can't eat the protein in the sufficient amount, or the we can say the not proper amount, which causes the protein malnutrition, right? So malnutrition due to inadequate intake of the protein as well as the energy. Suppose हमने sufficient amount में जो भी proper amount है, ratio है, उस amount में हमने वो intake नहीं किया, तो उसकी वजह से malnutrition basically cause होता है. Okay, and as you see in the picture, there is a few symptoms regarding with the malnutrition. That is nothing but the scaly skin, distended abdomen, swollen ankles, serves muscle wasting, wrinkled skins, old person face hair loss. Basically hair loss हो जाते हैं. Okay, right? जो भी प्रोटीन की डेफिशिएंसी होने से, right? Then old person face, जो भी फेस है यंग नहीं दिख पाता, एज अ ओल्ड पर्सन के कंपेयर में दिखता है, राइट? रिंकल स्किन, झुर्रिया पड़ जाते हैं, ऐसे जो भी स्किन है वो तेज नहीं दिख पाती. सर्व द मसल वेस्टिंग, जो भी मसल्स है उसको अपन लूजन अप कर देते हैं इन द केस ऑफ माल न्यूट्रिशन. स्केली स्किन, स्किन जो है वो टाइट नहीं रहती और स्किन पे ऐसे धब्बे धब्बे पड़ जाते हैं, यू नो, उसकी जो परत है वो निकलती जाती है. दैट इज नथिंग बट द स्केली स्किन. डिस्टेंटेड एब्डोमेन, जो भी एब्डोमेन है वो एकदम फूल सा जाता है, ठीक है, प्रॉपर शेप में नहीं रहता है, एकदम फूल सा जाता है, बड़ा होता है. स्वलन एंकल्स, जो भी अपने एंकल्स है वो स्वलन अप कर जाते हैं, ठीक है. Okay, so as the malnutrition which causes the inadequate intake of the protein as well as the energy, as you know that. So the basically the malnutrition regarding with the protein inadequate category, which is nothing but the kwashiorkor or the marasmus. Okay, kwashiorkor hota hai or the marasmus is the two positions or the two diseases or the conditions regarding with the malnutrition. Okay, we'll see one by one. Next student will discussing regarding with the fats in the diet, whatever the role RDA, whatever the essential fatty acids, non-essential fatty acids, all of regarding with the fatty acid will discuss. Okay, so as we all know that the fat which is highest energy source in our body, right, which is provided the 9 kilocalorie as compared to the carbohydrate and the protein. Carbohydrate and protein how much provided? 4 kilocalorie as compared to the carbohydrate and the protein. Fat which is provided the highest amount of the energy in our body and also called as the stored energy in our body. ठीक है, फैट क्या है? फैट जनरली सोलुबलाइज नहीं होता, राइट? वाटर में जनरली वो सोलुबलाइज नहीं होता, दैट्स व्हाई इट इज stored in the body as the energy source which provided 9 kilocalorie, right? So whatever the importance of the fatty acid is nothing but the whatever the types of the fatty acid, just like essential fatty acid and the non-essential fatty acid. As essential fatty acid can't produce in our body, that take from the outer source, that take from the diet, that is essential amino acid, which is very essential to our body. That is nothing but the linoleic and the linolenic acid. Point to be noted, students, is very important. Okay, ये जो मैं स्टार कर रही हूँ, it is a very important concept. जो भी essential amino acid है वो linoleic as well as the linolenic है. Okay, basically fat, which is the phospholipid, which is provided one of the membrane to the cell. सेल को एक membrane provide करने का काम ये lipid fat करता है. इसमें से कौन सा फैट है? दैट इज नथिंग बट द फॉस्फोलिपिड. एक स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोवाइड करने का काम सेल मेम्ब्रेन को फॉस्फोलिपिड करता है, फैट कंटेंट करता है, राइट? सो बेसिकली दीज आर द टू टाइप्स ऑफ द फैट as basically as criteria of solubility, right? Fat soluble as well as the water soluble. So fat soluble vitamin is nothing but the ADKE, help in the absorption of the fat soluble vitamins, right? Means that fat soluble vitamin ADKE, which is responsible to absorb the fat in our body, right? So as the recommended dietary intake, adult or the fat, which is 65 gram per day, which is required as the RDA, recommended dietary intake, and the saturated fat, which is the 20 gram per day. Now what is the difference between the saturated and the fat? Saturated, which is belong with the category of the animal fat, which is the ghee, butter, okay, which is comes from the animal. Okay, fat means the vegetable oil, which is comes through plant source, right? So as the excessive intake of the fat, which causes the atherosclerosis, which is the cardiovascular disease, heart के related वो disease है, that is nothing but the atherosclerosis. And obesity means the fatty, जो fatty होते हैं लोग उसको obesity बोलते हैं, जिसको स्थूलता बोलते हैं, ठीक है, वो हो जाता है as the excessive amount of the fat intake, right? So we'll move forward to a essential fatty acid. Student, point is noted that essential fatty acid is very important to our body for maintaining the tissue, for other functional activity also. Okay, mainly the unsaturated fatty acid, right? Okay, so there is a two basically essential fatty acid, omega-3 and the omega-6 fatty acid. Basically what happened, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid having the similar structure. Omega-3, what denote the 3? Means in the omega-3 fatty acid there is a 3 double bond is involved. Omega-6 fatty acid 6 double bond is involved. Here what happened in omega-3 and the omega-6 fatty acid, the structure having one end containing the methyl group, second end containing the carboxylic acid group. Okay, from the methyl group, which carbon atom first having the double bond carry, from that carbon atom naming is that 3. Okay, मिथाइल ग्रुप से थर्ड नंबर के कार्बन आइटम पे फर्स्ट डबल बॉन्ड आया है, दैट्स वाई उसको नेम किया गया है ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड. आई होप आपको समझ में आया होगा. ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड का कैसा है, मिथाइल ग्रुप से 6 नंबर के कार्बन पे फर्स्ट डबल बॉन्ड आया है, इसलिए उसको ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड कहा गया है. ठीक है, ये सब लिखा है यहाँ पे. इट मीन्स द लोकेशन ऑफ द फर्स्ट डबल बॉन्ड, ये फर्स्ट डबल बॉन्ड of fatty acid chain start continue from the methyl group. and देखो मैं आपको स्ट्रक्चर थोड़ा सा निकाल के बताती हूँ. जैसे कि ये मिथाइल ग्रुप है, ठीक है, तो थोड़ा सा निकाल के, जैसे ये मिथाइल ग्रुप है, ठीक है, तो ये मिथाइल फर्स्ट कार्बन हो गया, ये सेकंड कार्बन हो गया, ये थर्ड कार्बन हो गया, ये फोर्थ कार्बन, ठीक है, ये फर्स्ट, ये सेकेंड, ये थर्ड. तो इस थर्ड नंबर के कार्बन आइटम पे ये डबल बॉन्ड, फर्स्ट डबल बॉन्ड आएगा. देन फिर बाद में ये स्ट्रक्चर ऐसे कंटिन्यू होते, जो लास्ट ग्रुप आएगा वो CHO ग्रुप आएगा. ठीक है, COOH ग्रुप आएगा, कार्बोक्सिलिक एसिड ग्रुप। ठीक है, तो मिथाइल ग्रुप के एंड से फर्स्ट जो डबल बॉन्ड है वो कितने नंबर के कार्बन आइटम पे आया, वो थर्ड नंबर के कार्बन आइटम पे आया। दैट्स वाई इसको नेम किया गया है ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड। आपको समझ में आया? आई होप आपको समझ में आया होगा। ठीक है, ऐसे ही ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड के केस में होता है। ठीक है, basically omega 3 fatty acid as well omega 6 fatty acid, it is the PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, right? And omega 9 fatty acid, which is under in the category of the monounsaturated fatty acid, MUFA. Okay, deficiency cause whatever the scaly skin scaly सी हो जाती है, dermatitis, basically the deficiency of that omega 3 fatty acid or the omega 6 fatty acid deficiency, which is causes the mostly regarding with the skin diseases के regarding वो deficiency हो जाती है। ठीक है, growth arrested हो जाती है, reduce growth हो जाती है। ठीक है, most common in the infant में ये common होती है। ठीक है, देख use for icosanoid synthesis, which appear have the cardioprotective effect. Now that omega 3 fatty acid and omega 6 fatty acid, which is used to for the cardioprotective effect, whatever the heart को protect करने के लिए, cardio की health को protect करने के लिए ये generally use में लाते हैं अपन। ठीक है, डिक्रीज इन द ब्लड क्लॉटिंग एंड डिक्रीज इन द ब्लड प्रेशर, बीपी के केस में एज वेल एज द ब्लड क्लॉटिंग के केस में ये यूजफुल होता है। ठीक है, देन मूविंग टुवर्ड नेक्स्ट। Okay, in category of next macronutrient is nothing but the carbohydrate. As we see earlier is that the carbohydrate is the main energy primary source regarding with the energy production in our body. Okay, so the regarding with the carbohydrate, the recommended dietary intake is nothing but the 130 gram per day is a very important student, right? Very important concept in here is that the recommended dietary intake for the carbohydrate is nothing but the 130 gram per day for the adults as well as the children. Okay, the CHO is nothing but the carbohydrate, hydrogen and the oxygen intake above the RDA as the suggested recommended by the RDA. As we intake for the carbohydrate as the case above the RDA, then what happened? Then the weight gain and the obesity get happen, okay, due to the fat storage in our adipose tissue. As we all know that the fat is the highest source of the energy which is stored in our beneath of the adipose tissue. As the carbs, excess of the carbs which is reform as the energy source as the fat. So excess gain of the carbs which is causes the weight gain and the obesity. As the we see the types of the carbs, types of the CHO, carbohydrate, hydrogen and the oxygen is nothing but the simple sugar and the complex sugar. What happened? The simple sugar having the example of the sucrose, fructose, lactose, corn syrup is there, and the complex sugar which is involved in the whole grain pasta and the wheat starch. What happened in the complex sugar? We have require the more energy to break it down because whatever the polysaccharides, whatever the as see here the pasta wheats are there which is require the types of the hard wheat, types of the soft which is contain the more amount of the polysaccharide in it. So we have require the more energy to break it down that break. Okay, so that is categorized into the complex protein and which is require the less energy as compared to the complex, that is categorized into the simpler one. Okay, fiber, as we know that the component which cannot be broken by the human digestive system is called as the dietary fiber, and means in the human being basically there is a absence of the enzyme which is basically digested for the dietary fiber which is absent. That's the human which can't be break the dietary fiber, right? Then nextly, the whatever the RD recommended dietary intake for the dietary fiber is suggested is nothing but the for the main it is the 30 gram per day, 38 gram per day, and for the woman category 25 gram per day. Okay, it is very important, that concept. The dietary fiber which cannot break to the human. Okay, and that recommended dietary is very important. So we'll see whatever the benefits regarding with the dietary fiber is nothing but the promote feeling of the fulfillment. As the satiety value it is fulfilled as we intake the dietary fiber, because it is having the more satiety value as compared to all micronutrients, right? Reduce the constipation, जिसको हम कब्ज कहते हैं, that reduce that concentration, it is reduced to intake of the dietary fiber in our diet. Low the serum of the low density lipoprotein level. Okay, जो भी सीरम लेवल है उनका, जो भी हम फैट इंटेक करते हैं उन फैट को लो सीरम में रखने का काम डाइटरी फाइबर करता है, एज which not causes further harm effect to our body. That's why the dietary fiber help in the LDL level. Okay, reduce the exposure of the gut and the carcinogenic, those the foreign agent in our gut, those the foreign agent in our स्टमक में जो भी फॉरेंजिंग एजेंट कार्सिनोजेनिक एजेंट होते हैं, जो भी एडवर्स हेल्थ इफेक्ट करने में कॉजेस आते हैं, उनको ये कट डाउन करने में गट में हेल्पफुल होता है. ओके, द फ्री रेडिकल्स ऑफ द कार्सिनोजेनिक आर द एक्सक्रीटेड विद द सोल्यूबल फाइबर. वो जैसे कि अपन देखेंगे वॉट एवर द टाइप्स ऑफ द dietary fibers is nothing but the soluble and the insoluble. So in the form of the solubilized fiber, what happened, that carcinogenic material gets solubilized into the soluble fiber and that is excreted from our body, right? Slow gastric emptying, long term glucose control with the in patient with the diabetic mellitus. Okay, what happened in the diabetic patient, what happened, the digestion metabolic activity is not happen in the natural way. Then what happened in the diabetic patient, the dietary fiber is especially in that diet recommended for the metabolic activity, for naturally metabolic activity to excrete whatever the waste material in our body. Okay, for the diet for the diabetes patient it is recommended. Okay, then we'll see whatever the two types of the dietary fibers. First is nothing but the soluble fiber which is solubilized in the water. Okay, जो भी solubilized dietary fiber होते हैं वो soluble होते हैं. Okay, they can be read the they can't be read the carcinogen. अभी देखो वाटर में soluble होंगे तो वो easily यूरिन से और whatever the excrete इन अवर बॉडी उससे पास आउट हो जाएंगे. ये कोई भी कार्सिनोजेनिक और हार्मफुल इफेक्ट और टॉक्सिक इफेक्ट कोई भी कॉज नहीं कर सकती जो भी सोलुबलाइज हो गए, क्योंकि वो वाटर में इजीली सोलुबलाइज हो जाते हैं एंड एक्सक्रीट थ्रू आउट द बॉडी तो फिर इजीली हो जाएंगे. लेकिन वॉट एवर इन केस ऑफ द इनसोल्युबल फाइबर विच इज गिव द बल्क टू द स्टूल, वॉट एवर द जो भी अपना वेस्ट मटेरियल होता है इन योर बॉडी एक्सक्रीट होता है वो इजीली नहीं हो पाता ड्यू टू द इनसोल्युबल फैट which is causes the toxic effect to our body and in our जो भी अपना वेस्ट मटेरियल होता है उसको बल्क देने का काम ये करता है. ओके okay, if the person had the diarrhea, those the person is having the diarrhea which is stomach ache, right? So there is a two types. इस तरह से हमने डाइटरी फाइबर में देखा कि बेसिकली जो भी डाइटरी फाइबर होते हैं विच इज कांट बी डाइजेस्ट टू योर ह्यूमन बॉडी एंड दोज डाइटरी फाइबर हैविंग द रिकमेंडेड डाइटरी अलाउंसेस जैसे कि हमने देखे एंड इसका हमने बेनिफिट देखा किस किस जगह पे इसका बेनिफिट होता है. जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल कॉन्स्टिपेशन में इसका मेनली यूज होता है, ये आप ध्यान में रखिएगा, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है, राइट? कॉन्स्टिपेशन में जैसे कि हमने फैट इंटेक किया है तो उस फैट को हमें कार्सिनोजेनिक इफेक्ट से बचाने के लिए जो भी कार्सिनोजेनिक अपने फॉरेंजिंग मटेरियल होते हैं उसको बॉडी में लो डाउन करने के लिए डाइटरी फाइबर यूज में आता है. ओके, सैटिस्फैक्टरी वैल्यू फुलफिल करने में अपने को डाइटरी फाइबर यूज में आता है. ठीक है, ये सब कॉन्सेप्ट हो गए, सब बेनिफिट हो गए रिगार्डिंग विद द dietary fiber. Then we'll see whatever the two types of the dietary fiber, that is the solubilized and the insolubilized which give the bulk to the stool, and the soluble, which is excreted through our body, which is water solubilized, and which is doesn't cause any carcinogenic effect, right? Then, and moving toward the omega-3 fatty acids, right? Basically, omega-3 fatty acid mainly found in the fish which is containing in the cold water. Okay, जो भी fish cold water में content होती है, सर्व करती है, उसमें जनरली ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड्स होते हैं, राइट? तो जनरली दैट फिश इज नथिंग बट द ट्यूना, व्हाइट फिश, सार्डिन, सैल्मन, मैकरेल, ठीक है, एल्बाकोर, ओके, दैट इज certain fishes which is containing the omega-3 fatty acids. Now, that omega-3 fatty acid which is play a very important role in basically structural membrane lipid which give the one of the structure, as we, जैसे कि जो भी सेल है उस सेल को एक स्ट्रक्चर प्रोवाइड करने में ये काम आता है, राइट? वन ऑफ द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर प्रोवाइड करने में दैट ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड प्ले अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल. Okay, when you are eating the omega-3 fatty acids or take them as a supplement, they will replace the membrane lipid, modified them. Generally, the phospholipid in the fats, okay, phospholipid in the fats, which is give the structural membrane in the membrane to give one of the shape to that membrane. Okay, structure maintain करने के लिए सेल का जनरली ये यूज में आता है, राइट? मॉड्यूलेटर ऑफ द ओमेगा 6, जो भी ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड का मेटाबॉलिज्म करने में ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड आर यूजफुल, राइट? So people with the high cholesterol should take the omega 6 fatty acids. Okay, those people which is suffering from the cholesterol, right, who having or who should take it the omega 6 fatty acid, even though they decreases the HDL. Why? Because in the patient it is the great importance of the low density lipoprotein level, and because HDL can be increases by the lifestyle modification such as the exercise. Okay, basically जो भी पेशेंट है कोलेस्टेरॉल के, उनको ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड का इंटेक करना इंपॉर्टेंट है. वाई? क्योंकि जो भी हाई डेंसिटी लिपोप्रोटीन होते हैं दैट हेल्पफुल फॉर द basically for the modification of certain SDL के modification में वो काम आते हैं. That's why omega 6 fatty acid is very important who having suffering for the cholesterol disease. Now there is a certain that difference between omega 3 fatty acid and the omega 6 fatty acids. Now the sources of omega 6 fatty acid is nothing but the DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, okay, EPA, that is the eicosapentaenoic acid, which is in the fish में ये पाया जाता है DHA as well as the EPA, docosahexaenoic acid and the eicosapentaenoic acid. Okay, and whatever the effect of the omega 3 fatty acid, suppress the cardiac erythemias. Okay, वो जो भी कार्डियोवैस्कुलर डिसीज है उनको सप्रेस करने के काम में ये ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है. एंड द मेन फंक्शन इज नथिंग बट द सीरम ट्राइग्लिसराइड्स. ओके, ये जो भी फैट कंटेंट है, जो भी फैट में ट्राइग्लिसराइड है, उनके सीरम को लो करने में काम आता है. एंड टेंडेंसी टू थ्रोम्बोसिस मींस ब्लड क्लॉटिंग के फैक्टर में ये काम आता है. बीपी के केस में, ब्लड प्रेशर के केस में, कार्डियोवैस्कुलर मोर्टेलिटी के केस में, एंड एचडीएल हाई डेंसिटी लिपोप्रोटीन एज वेल एज द लो डेंसिटी लिपोप्रोटीन के भी केस में ही काम करता है. आप ये ध्यान में रखिएगा स्टूडेंट, इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ओमेगा 3 फैटी एसिड विच इज फंक्शनिंग इन द लोअर द सीरम ऑफ द ट्राइग्लिसराइड. ओके, ये important है. Then moving toward the omega 6 fatty acid, the sources are the nuts, olives, avocados, soybean oil, sesame, cotton seeds, corn oil. Okay, basically whatever the effect of the omega 6 fatty acid is nothing but that lowers the plasma cholesterol. जो भी blood में plasma है तो उस blood stream से उस कोलेस्ट्रॉल को लो करने के काम में ये ओमेगा 6 फैटी एसिड काम में आता है, राइट? then lowers the low density lipoprotein as well in the case of high density lipoprotein. Low density lipoprotein as well the high density lipoprotein में ये काम में आता है. ठीक है, that is a certain work of omega-6 fatty acid. Then we move towards the vitamins, right? Basically the vitamins are the organic compound which is very require the small amount or the small quantity in our body to functioning, right? Help in the various biochemical process. Metabolism में वो काम करता है, biochemical process में वो काम करता है, as well vitamins serve as a role of the coenzyme. Okay, जो भी catalyze करने reaction catalyze करने के काम में भी as a coenzyme vitamins play a very important role. Okay, as well vitamins play a very important role in the growth as well as the good health maintaining. It is a very essential factor. Vitamins is called as the accessory factor, right, to our body. Non-caloric होता है ये, means they provide doesn't any energy to our body, require a very small amount, right? So on the basis of the solubility, will classify that vitamins, that is nothing but the fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins which is containing ADKE stored in the body, okay, which is generally fat soluble, which is not excreted through our body, that is fat soluble. वो fat में solubilize होते हैं, that's why वो store होते हैं, that's why it causes the toxic effect. Suppose इनका excess storage अपने body में हो गया, which causes the toxic health effect. Okay, and for fat soluble vitamins, it is a B complex and the C vitamin. That fat solubility, what happen in the case of the in case of the water solubilized, ये water में solubilize होके body से excrete हो जाती है. That's why generally in case of a water solubilized vitamin require the daily need, वो daily रिक्वायरमेंट के बेसिस पे डेली बेसिस पे उनकी नीड होती है, राइट? फैट वाटर सोल्यूबल विटामिन की. एंड एज दे स्टोर तो होते नहीं है जनरली, लेकिन जो भी वाटर सोल्यूबलाइज होते हैं, वाटर में सोल्यूबलाइज होके एक्सक्रीट होते हैं, दैट्स व्हाई ये स्टोर नहीं हो पाते एंड एक्सेस हो भी गए, लेकिन इट इज डजंट कॉज एनी टॉक्सिक हेल्थ इफेक्ट टू आवर बॉडी. ओके, तो ये जो भी है वो विटामिन बी कॉम्प्लेक्स है, जैसे कि B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B7, B9, B12. Okay, this B complexes and vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Okay. Okay, that is a mineral and the trace element. What is it? Basically, mineral it is having the two category. First is the macro minerals and second is the micro mineral. As हमने न्यूट्रिएंट के केस में भी देखे थे, macro था और micro था. इसका basic difference तो आपको अब ध्यान में ही आ गया होगा कि macro means what, which is require as the large amount in our body, and the micro means which is require the less amount in our body. Okay, so macro as well as the micro element. Okay, so what is it basically? Okay, macro minerals are those minerals which is required or needed more than the 100 gram per day. वो 100 gram per day से 100 gram से ज़्यादा लगता है, that category it is under in the macro minerals. Okay, and those minerals which is required lower, less to the 100 gram, 100 gram से less लगता है, that's why अपन उसको माइक्रो मिनरल के कैटेगरी में रखते हैं. तो एज हियर इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट स्टूडेंट, ये एग्जांपल माइक्रो मिनरल एज वेल एज मैक्रो मिनरल एज वेल एज द माइक्रो मिनरल के है. कैल्शियम हो गया, उसमें फॉस्फोरस, सोडियम, पोटेशियम, chloride as well as the magnesium. It is having the needed of our body is more than 100 milligram per day. Okay, इसकी जो नीड है वो एक्सेस 100 ग्राम है, 100 ग्राम से ज्यादा हमें लगता है, दैट्स वाई हमने उसको माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट की कैटेगरी में रखा है. एज वेल माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट के केस में आयरन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एग्जांपल, आयोडीन, मोलिब्डेनम, कॉपर, सेलेनियम, मैग्नीज, फ्लोराइड, जिंक, क्रोमियम, कोबाल्ट एंड सिलिकॉन. ओके, तो ये यही यहाँ पे लिखा है शायद। ओके ओके, जो भी माइक्रो मिनरल्स है उसकी जो नीड है वो मोर देन 100 लगेंगी। माइक्रो माइक्रो सॉरी माइक्रो मेरे इसमें न्यूट्रिएंट ही आ रहा है, माइक्रो मिनरल्स आर देयर, माइक्रो मिनरल्स विच इज रिक्वायर लेस देन 100 मिलीग्राम पर डे। ओके ओके, देन इसको if the minerals are needed more than 100 is called as a macro, and उसको हम मैक्रो मिनरल्स को ही हमने ट्रेस एलिमेंट कहा है, उसको ट्रेस एलिमेंट। ओके, the trace element are nothing but the metal elements। okay, जो भी trace element है require the smaller amount of our body is called as the metal। जो भी metal element है जो constituent होते हैं बेसिकली उसको उसमें metal content किए जाते हैं, right? then moving toward the next slide। Okay, now we'll see in the case of the iron which is under in the category of the mineral, okay, which is require less than the 100 milligram per day। उसका RD क्या है, उसका source क्या है, उसके functions क्या है, ये अपन जानते हैं। okay, so basically the source of iron is nothing but the heme iron, जो कि blood stream में पाया जाता है, you know, blood stream में पाया जाता है। तो जो main central item होता है for the blood component, that is the heme iron। okay, which is basically found in the animal product, जैसे कि मीट हो गया, लिवर हो गया, and heme iron which is absorbed in a body, it is a 25%। okay, 25%। and the non heme iron having a component spinach, beans, suppose इसका absorption 5% से भी लेस हो गया तो which is that person fall in the category of the iron deficiency, वो iron deficiency के केस में शामिल हो जाता है, right? देखो जो भी नॉन हिम आयरन है विच इज कंटेनिंग इन द स्पिनच एज वेल एज द बीन्स, इसका जो एब्जॉर्प्शन है 5% से भी लेस हो गया, दैट पर्सन विच इज फॉल अंडर इन द आयरन डेफिशिएंसी, वो आयरन डेफिशिएंसी के केस में फॉल हो जाता है। सो वॉट एवर द RDA रिकमेंडेड डाइटरी इंटेक फॉर द आयरन इज नथिंग बट फॉर द मेन इट इज द 8 मिलीग्राम एंड फॉर द वुमन 18 मिलीग्राम। वुमन के लिए केस में वाई वुमन के लिए ज्यादा है आयरन इंटेक करना, बिकॉज ड्यू टू द जब अपन प्रेगनेंसी के केस में होते हैं, लैक्टेशन के केस में होता है वुमन, तो उसकी कंडीशन में क्या होता है कि उनको आयरन कंटेनिंग सब्सटेंस ज्यादा इंटेक करने होते हैं। दैट्स व्हाई द इंटेक फॉर द वुमन इन द केस ऑफ वुमन कंडीशन आयरन इंटेक इज मोर। चिल्ड्रन के केस में 7 to 15। okay, then the function, whatever the functions of the iron, then the oxygen transport and the metabolism। जो भी ऑक्सीजन देखो जैसे कि हम मैंने बताया कि ब्लड स्ट्रीम में एज अ सेंट्रल आइटम आयरन पाया जाता है, राइट? तो वॉट एवर द फंक्शन ऑफ द ब्लड स्ट्रीम का क्या है कि ऑक्सीजन ट्रांसपोर्ट करना, तो यही इसका काम है ऑक्सीजन ट्रांसपोर्ट करने का, एज वेल एज द फॉर द हेल्पफुल फॉर द मेटाबॉलिज्म एक्टिविटी। ओके, जो भी डाइजेशन एब्सॉर्प्शन है, डाइजेशन मेटाबॉलिक एक्टिविटी है, उसको प्ले करने में आयरन काम आता है। पार्ट ऑफ द हीमोग्लोबिन, एज देखा हीमोग्लोबिन ब्लड का पार्ट है, मायोग्लोबिन मसल का पार्ट है, ठीक है, साइटोक्रोम्स। ओके, पिगमेंट। ओके, बॉडी स्टोर इन द आयरन एज अ फेरिटिन इन द लिवर। ओके, इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कंसेप्ट हियर स्टूडेंट, कि जो भी आयरन है वो अपने बॉडी में एज अ फेरिटिन स्टोर होता है, जो लीवर में फाउंड किया जाता है, एज अ हिमोसिडरिन फाउंड होता है, जो भी प्रोटीन विद द आयरन होता है, ठीक है, एज अ ट्रांसफरिन जो ब्लड में आयरन होता है उसके इसमें आयरन जनरली फाउंड किया जाता है, ठीक है। ये आप याद रखें, ये जो भी है ये नोट आप पॉइंट नोट आउट कर सकते हैं कि जो भी आयरन है अपने बॉडी में फेरिटिन, hemosiderin as well as transferrin in the case of the blood, ferritin in the case of liver and hemosiderin in the case of the protein के केस में ये आयरन अपने बॉडी में स्टोर होता है, ठीक है। अडल्ट वुमेन हैव मच लोअर आयरन स्टोरेज देन द मेन। जो भी अडल्ट वुमन होती है एज यू नो इन द एज ऑफ 20-25 उसके केस में जो भी आयरन होता है वो लोअर होता है एज compared to men। okay, that's why women need the more iron intake। okay, so moving toward the next slide। so thank you so much student for this class and do subscribe to our food tech online channel। as आपको MCQ के सेट्स लगाने होंगे एज वेल एज आपको ऐसे ही टॉपिक फर्दर पढ़ने होंगे, तो हमारा फूड टेक ऑनलाइन आप हमें सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हैं। थैंक यू सो मच।